Hey, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, empowering your staff. And we're here with Brian from Barsight to learn how implementing software for employee training can help you see greater success. Great to have you, Brian. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how Barsight came to be?
All right, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so about me, I've been in the restaurant industry for years. I started out with, just working in the kitchen, back of house. Started off as a line cook and kind of gradually, working my way up to serving and bartending. And I've also been kind of a tech guy for a long time. And one of the restaurants I was working with just needed some help with, setting up the POS terminals and little ticket machines. So I started off helping them out there, and then started making websites for restaurants, and eventually one thing, led into another, and met a CFO for a major restaurant group up here, and he's like, "Hey, can you solve this problem for me?" And I was like, "Well, sure, let's talk." And it was basically just about getting the employee scheduled hours to the accountants easier because they were just messing around, emailing spreadsheets back and forth, and it's like the classic, there's got to be a better way. And I was like, yeah, we can make a better way. And so basically, that was the first version of Barsight. Was just a way to get employee hours from the restaurants in the hands of the accountants so they can process payroll.
Brian, when did that conversation happen?
Oh, that started back. The first version probably started back in 2015,
So you've
and
been working on this quite a bit of time.
it has it's had taken a little bit of a life of its own and a couple turns here and there, and the current sort of uh, fleshed out look of Barsight has been around. I created it and I started getting it ready for breweries. Is when I sort of pivoted into breweries and wineries is what I wanted to tackle instead of just plain restaurants. It was 2019, but as we all know, COVID hit 2020, and so it was just been a year of sort of waiting, and now, all out of it now, and we're ready to rock and roll.
So we're going to dive into it in a moment, but you talk about loving to solve problems, and I also love to solve problems all day long. I could brainstorm solutions, get really creative. That's truly the fun part about it. In this first conversation you had with the brewer, the CFO, you mentioned you're just finding a way to get the hours over easier. As you dove deeper into this concept, what were some of the other problems you realized you wanted to solve?
Yeah, and that's just been adding on all the modules. I mean, I think the next question that he had after we solved the employee hours was just cleaning up the way to track expenses. So, the restaurant would order in all their napkins and their chemicals from their suppliers and stuff like that. And then the restaurant would just mail a shoebox full of receipts to the accountants. Like, there we go. There's our expenses for the month, sort through it. And so, so we made a better way for accounts payable to be processed. So the restaurant enters in everything and sends a nice formatted spreadsheet to the accountants, and then they can just do their magic. And then after that, it was employee training as well as logbook was another thing. So the managers would have a black book in the back just to write down all the events of the day and customer incidents and stuff like that, and just a better way for all the management to be more informed of what was going on, because the only person that really knew what was going on is someone that's actually there at that time. uh, a logbook, for example, like would send an email if there was a major incident to all the managers, like, hey, like we had a big fall or something like that. That way everyone's on the same page. So yeah, just solving problems as it sort of came up. If it's a good idea, I'll work towards it.
And so you're putting all these solutions in one spot. You're keeping accountability there for all the teams involved, but you're also storing so much really valuable information for, everyone on the team. That way they can just reference it at any point.
Yeah, and it's available on their phone. They don't have to go run to the back room, and it's just referencing the material as well. I mean, there was a case for time off requests. I remember I had a client that they had an employee, and it wasn't a very good employee, and then eventually that employee stopped working for them, but then ended up taking them to court and saying like, oh, they never gave me enough shifts, and this employer is all terrible, yada yada yada. And because everything's tracked on the system, we were able to provide a printout for them to take to court on all the shifts that that employee was assigned, and all the shifts that that employee traded away and didn't show up for, all the no-shows and all that stuff. And that was basically just thrown out of court because there was no cause of that. But we were able to prove that that had happened. If it was all just on pen and paper and they had no proof that the employee was trading away and not showing up for their shifts, that would have been harder to prove in court.
Yeah, having that information is definitely valuable. And at the end of the day, we want to make every employee's experience even more successful for everyone involved. And your platform can help with that. And I want to go back to your restaurant days for a minute, Brian. Like when you were working in the restaurants, I want to hear like your least favorite task and your favorite task. What were, those items?
Oh, least favorite task, definitely cleaning the oven and the grills, like working in the kitchen. Like it's just, yeah, it's pretty disgusting, some of the stuff. And then you think about it, like when you're at a restaurant, you're like, oh man, I hope they cleaned the grill good, last night. You kind of have to really get over that hill. And then probably my favorite stuff was almost any time I was behind the bar. I mean, I loved bartending, slinging beers, interacting with guests, and just running that line. I just loved it all when I was bartending.
Yeah, that human engagement component is so important. We're going to dive into that shortly. But first, what I want to talk about is an equally important concept of, just working in a brewery, working in a restaurant. And right now it's about to start winter and training. So often people just show up at a job, get thrown behind the bar, and it's like, hey, you probably know what to do because you've worked at another brewery before. But in your opinion, why is now a really important time to focus on training?
Well, I think it's a great time to focus on training just because, yeah, the summer's rush is over, the craziness is over, and it's kind of time to reflect a little bit. Like, okay, like that was a good year. What can we do to make next year, 2024, in this case, better? And you have less staff, so you've got less things to focus on. It's a good time to look over things such as, like, do you have a good way to train, get your staff to know all the crucial information that they need to know, especially when you start hiring all your new staff for the summer season coming up. Like if you don't have that in place right now when everything is slow, you won't have a good chance of getting that all in place when things are busy and crazy and just jumping, and that's where things fall behind.
No, that's true. And one of the things that you don't hear a lot about in the beer world is employee handbooks. Why are these employee handbooks so important, and why should breweries take the time to create one?
Yeah, well, the employee handbooks are just a good reference for all the crucial things of the brewery. And like you can't be in your brewery at all the time helping your staff out. You need to be able to um, know that your staff can handle situations that may come up if you're not there. And like it's you know if you're not on site and there's an emergency, like do you have complete confidence that all your staff members know exactly who to contact if there's something wrong that they need to solve? Are there any protocols in place, or like will it just be a madhouse full of panic and no one will know what to do? And so an employee handbook is a good place to sort of have all the stuff, like a brief description of the brewery, the history, so they all know about how the brewery came up to be, your general customer service, requirements that you want to be able to present, like the image that you want to present to the customers, as well as just safety and general knowledge of everything inside the brewery. And that can include things like phone numbers in the event of the dishwasher failing. Who's our maintenance contact in the event of the phones going down? Who can you contact to get the phone line back up and running? Same thing with internet, especially with a lot of the point of sale software. It needs internet to be able to work most of the time. So being able to give that knowledge to your employees and let them know that they have that knowledge in their phone, basically ready to go, is valuable, extremely valuable.
You've mentioned a couple areas that I wouldn't have thought about, just simply having the numbers of people to call outside of owners and managers in important situations. Like, yeah, losing your POS, losing your internet connection, that's a terrible thing to happen on a Saturday afternoon. So having the contact information there is really valuable. Are there any other areas that you recommend or focusing on an employee handbook that might often be overlooked?
Yeah. General just payroll knowledge. When the employees can expect the shifts to be published, and how to submit time off requests. In blackout periods. A lot of breweries might black out certain periods of the month, and like getting that information front and center so that the employees know that before they go to request the time off and realize, oh, I can't book off in the middle of July because that's a busy period. Well, if you have all that information when the employee gets hired, that can reduce a little bit of conflict there.
Now, you've gone over a lot of different concepts that go into an employee handbook. How long does it take to make one of these?
It can take as long as you as long as you need. Sometimes it can be a really quick and dirty example, especially just to get going, or you can continue refining and rebuilding it over time. There's at bar site we've got a quick template that sort of has the quick and dirty, like basically sort of everything that I sort of mentioned is all there, and fill in the blanks. Enter in your reservation policy and enter in your about us, and you could get going in that in like just a few minutes. Or you can print out a huge 35-page document if that's what you wanted to do. But I mean, that takes time and years of experience as well. I mean, I have one from Spencer at Roundman Brewing. He supplied me with a little template just to go over. And I mean, it's awesome, but it's big. It's a behemoth, and the community at large as well. If you have trouble forming and figuring out what you need to include in that employee handbook, CPB is a good resource just to ask and see what other breweries have done. And that's how I got a hold of this one from Spencer. And I can provide it to anyone that wants it as well. It's free to distribute if you're having trouble thinking about what you need to put into that employee handbook.
Very cool. I'm sure people will be reaching out for inspiration. But once someone's got their employee handbook ready, how in the world do you get the team to read it?
Yeah. Yeah. So getting them to read it can be a little bit of a challenge with our software, and this is what is kind of good versus having just a printout just to hand to your new employees, like, here, read this, and hope that they do and whatnot. With our software, if they haven't completed it, it will remind them. It will send them daily reminders. Hey, you haven't completed the training module, and so they'll get that constant reminder. You'll also will be able to see their progress. You'll be able to see that they have not started it and not finished it. And then with all of our training modules, there's the ability to create like a quiz at the end of it, and you can either make it fun if you want, include little questions. What was our a multiple choice question of how did we start, or what's our general reservation policy, how many days in advance do you need to book off or give us for time off requests. Or you can even just make it simple, like, did you read this, yes or no? And just by them completing that module lets you know that they've completed it. They're acknowledging that they completed it, and then our system will stop reminding them to complete it because they've done it.
And I imagine that logbook, that acknowledgement is important to have in the logbook. Is this where it ties together?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
very cool. So the next thing I want to talk about, you mentioned to me once before that years ago you helped at a brewery and you were just like thrown action on the bottling line. Tell me about that day.
Oh yeah, that was a fun and crazy day, but yeah, it was a friend that they were brewing beer and bottling. They were doing too many things at once. They needed help, and they asked me, "Hey, you got the day off? You want to come help?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'll come work in a brewery. That sounds great." And so I'm sure that's how everyone starts here. And yeah, so I got the quick and dirty safety meeting of, all right, welcome to the brewery. Don't get hurt or you're fired. And basically got told, this is my station, just to operate the machine that puts the caps on the bottles. And I had no idea really what was going on. Everything was brand new. And I just knew that, okay, the bottle comes in, I got to pull this lever and boof, in goes the cap and out she goes. And that was back in my younger days. And thinking about it now, like, that was actually really dangerous because I had no idea what was going on. Hot temperature of the brew house, going on, 10, 15 feet behind me or whatever. And, all the chemicals that are in the brewery that I had no idea on how to handle and all the machinery going on. There's a forklift in the back. I had no safety training about how to handle myself around a forklift. It was absolutely nothing.
Were all
And
those thoughts going through your head at that time, or it hit you years later? No.
years later, now that I'm, older and wiser, and just, oh, that was not the way we do things now. And as time has gone on, going over to different workplaces and whatnot, and the safety training I'm encountering and going through is a lot better, and it just makes me think back to those times. And I'm sure that still goes on, and I'm sure that you know that's just not good in the sense of workplace comp, which is here in BC, we have a governing body that's sort of like OSHA, and it's called WorkSafe BC. And I'm sure WorkSafe BC would just throw a fit if they walked into a brewery and they saw that going on.
And so I guess that led you to believe that there should be some sort of health and safety compliance within Barside.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, when I was helping out with designing all this with the restaurants in mind. Yeah, like one of the things, like easy training modules to implement is just a general knowledge about all the equipment that the back of house is working with, and it also comes down to it's a requirement for the breweries or kitchen or any restaurant that they need to be able to prove that they've trained their employees on the equipment, on the chemicals, WMIS training, workplace hazardous information systems. They need to be able to prove that they've done that. They can't just say, "Oh yeah, we've given everyone training. It's all good." Wink, wink. So with our training modules, you can design basically whatever you need to do. Read your manufacturer's manuals and get the safety points. Like, okay, all right, this is our bottling machine. This is our canning machine. This is the general safety awareness of everything around it. These are all the chemicals that we use. This is wear gloves for this one. Make sure you fully rubber boot and PVC pipe suit and everything for this one. And by doing that and having a training module and actually having your employees complete that training module, you as an employer have proof that you've provided training and the employee has received the training, which that turns into a big thing these days, especially if there's a workplace incident.
Can you give me an example of what you mean by that?
Yeah, so like I was listening to another one of the podcasts that CBP has, leveling up systems of internal accountability. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was OSHA is no longer grouping violations and penalties. According to that, $15,625 is the fine that OSHA is handing out. And what they did in the past is if you had a big workplace incident, they would group the fines and you would only pay them once. But now they're no longer doing that. And so for an unfortunate accident, you could now be fined for not having a policy in place, not training the employees on the policy, as well as getting fined on the actual incident itself. I mean, that's 3 right there, and not including whatever else that they may find. That could be $46,000 in fines. Just
that.
Poof, gone. And so by taking the time to write the training modules on health and safety and proper procedures and getting the employees to acknowledge that they've read it, you can save yourself a little bit of coinage and fines there, because you'll be able to prove that, hey, like I train them on the chemicals here. I train them that wearing rubber gloves and glasses is what they need to do. And so it alleviates some of the penalties that the owner has to pay.
And if they're using a chemical that they haven't used in a while, or a piece of equipment they haven't operated in a little bit, can they go back to the platform and kind of take that refresher?
Oh yeah, for sure. Every training module's available on the employee's phone forever, and so they can go back and have a quick boot, like, oh yeah, what was this, and find the training module and go to the page that they need to, and it's available right there for them.
Brian, who do you typically see at the breweries handles these training modules? Is it like the owner? Do you see it like the brewing operations person? Who's the point of contact typically?
Yeah, usually it's more the like a taproom manager or the brewing operations manager, the one that is sitting in the office most of the time designing these, and they'll work with the head brewer as well, going through and verifying all the things that need to go into that, and yeah, designing that, because the brewer will have the knowledge of what needs to be taught, especially once they start getting the assistant brewers on and start hiring out the brewer and the operations are the main
And
designers.
And as we all know, lots of different kinds of people work in the brewery, front of house, back of house, management, all over the place. And not everybody's going to need to know necessarily the same amount of information. Like when you're bringing someone on as a new hire, are you able to assign them the certain, modules that they need to kind of really focus on?
Yeah, all of our training modules can be automatically assigned based on the role that those people have, and so you can design your whole back of house and brewery training modules to only be assigned to the employees that have that role. So your host won't have to go through all the hazardous chemicals that the brewery operates. Won't have to go through those training modules unless you need to. But the same thing with the back of house guys. They don't need to go through all the tap room, front of house, how to set up a table and stuff like that. So yeah, you can design these training modules to automatically be deployed and assigned to the employees that it's most relevant to. And you can, even if you've got cross training, you want to pick one employee that maybe start working in the back, you can individually assign the training modules as well.
That's really cool. Now, let's shift a little bit to the front of house. I love everything front of house. I could talk tap room all day. So, how can this better training and software help front of staff?
Yeah, it can help the front of house staff just improve the general customer experience. I mean, you'll be hiring people with all different levels of experience in the brewery. Some people, like fresh out of school, have never really drank beer before in their lives, or you're hiring someone that's worked in breweries forever and ever and ever. So you've got this vast array of different knowledge, and the creating a simple intro about your brewery and how you want your customers to be greeted, how you want the tables to be set up, and a general overview of the beers as well, can just help better equip all your hires with the same level of knowledge on what to do. And so you kind of, all ships rise with the tide, sort of thing. And so if you're filling those holes where people don't know things, um, that includes a better customer experience. And yeah, it's just the sorry yeah, it can just make things better, and even thinking about all the beers that your brewery can offer, and different types of beer. You might not have complete knowledge of all the beers, but you can get your staff well informed on the difference between a West Coast IPA and an English red ale, but and being able to inform the customers, basically help them in the tap
I
room.
know quite a bit of breweries that print out like a one sheet of all the beers they have on tap. Maybe they put a description on it. Then you can, of course, ask the staff to read it, but it's hard to verify besides them saying, of course, Brian, I read that when I arrived today. But I suppose, if they were releasing a new beer, they could create a little module on bar site where they could just learn everything about that beer before they even clock into their show, or they clock in, of course, but then before they serve the customer, they would already check off that they completed it.
Yeah, we see one brewery that does it monthly. That they create like an upcoming beer cheat sheet, and what they'll do is they'll send it out to the staff once a month. These are the beers that are coming on board. Week 1, week 2, week 3, and a brief tasting notes of it. What it pairs well with. Um, and it just better equips all the staff with knowledge about what's happening versus having a customer come up and say, "Oh, I see you've got a new beer there. What's it taste like? I really like IPAs. What's this one like?" And it's better than having your staff just stand there and go, "Oh, I don't know. It's brand new. Let's give it a try." Right? It gives them talking points.
So, what's the process like for a manager to create these modules?
It's pretty. We try and make it really simple. It's like it's a drag and drop. You have a couple options. You've got plain text. You can put in text with images, and just and make it simple that way. You can upload PDFs if that's what you have, and you have already designed PDFs and whatever. You can just upload those. You can even insert videos if you've got videos recorded on YouTube. You can include a link to that, and it'll just embed itself right into the training module right there. So just whatever sort of way makes the most sense for you. What we see a lot is, especially for ones that are like creating new training modules, every month, it's just normally just a short little blurb. Doesn't have to be, excuse me, a super expansive wall of text. It can just be a page or two, just a quick notes of everything going on. And it's just you create the training module, drag in that you want it to be an article, and you just start typing away, and you hit publish, and it goes right out to the employees. I mean, you can, once you get going on that, you can just knock that out on a Sunday afternoon.
We don't want to be working on a Sunday afternoon, Brian. Come on.
Yeah. All right. Monday afternoon.
So for these modules, it sounds like the goal is to make them pretty digestible. I don't think any brewery employee wants to feel like they're in the middle of like a college lecture, spending hours upon hours learning something. In the breweries that you work with, how long would you say the average module is when they're learning a new skill or piece of information?
Yeah, I think on average they're about three pages long. Like the bigger, more important modules, such as like the policies and procedures and safety manuals. Those ones are a little bit easier to break up into multiple pages, and that they can be a little bit longer just because there's more information. We also have like a daily and weekly employee brewery cleaning training templates. Sorry. And, those ones are multiple pages, but just because we spread those over, like, okay, these are all the daily tasks. And
Is it
these
like
are
a
the next.
checklist in a way?
Yeah, basically. And it's a checklist. And then it's basically like, this is what we expect you to do daily. This is what we expect you to do weekly. And so we broke those up into different modules, and it kind of just goes through the different pages, kind of go through the different steps and whatnot. And so the best thing to do that we found is sort of break it up into different modules, so they're different links, rather than having one big massive training module, because like you say, it's not really digestible if it's just a wall of text on pages and pages and pages, and things get lost and forgotten. And then also gets hard to reference to as well. Like if you're an employee thinking back, okay, it's the time for the monthly brewery cleaning, like what was expected of me again, and all that stuff. It's easier just to go back, and if that's the module called monthly cleaning tasks, you can go into that and quickly, oh yeah, it's supposed to be that, and it's on the first or second page. You don't have to scroll through forever and ever. And other than that, I mean, most of the time, especially for the monthly new announcements and kitchen menu stuff and whatever. I mean, one page is pretty sufficient too, especially if you're doing it a lot. And it's just continuous improvement for the employees. They don't want to read novels.
I keep going back to the cleaning component that you mentioned. Do you see some breweries use it as a requirement for employees to fill out at the end of each shift?
That would lean to more towards the logbook, that that yes, I've done it. The training modules themselves are just an overview of like, this is how we expect the dishwasher to look at the end of the shift, right? They'll take a picture of the dish pit, and this is what it needs to look like. And then so the training module itself is just an acknowledgement, like, okay, yeah, I read it, and this is what I'm going to do. And then that ties into the logbook, is at the end of the shift, the employees, like, yep, clean and sanitized it all, and everything's all skookum, or we're a little bit low on chemicals on this and whatever. And so that can get put in the logbook. And so that's more of a fill out form versus the training module, which is just knowledge about what's expected.
Very cool. Now, you talked about a lot of practices today that they almost seem so basic, but so many people aren't taking the time to do these little steps, whether we're talking about the employee handbooks, necessary training, just the pre-shift, meetings, modules that people are learning a piece of skill or a piece of information that can be valuable for that, experience later that day in the tap room. What are some of the benefits you believe that breweries who invest in the things we've discussed today will experience?
Well, the benefits would just be knowledge that your staff is equipped with the knowledge of what they need to know, and a better running experience. Like no second guessing on where everything is, and missing steps, and then not knowing how to close down everything properly. The biggest benefit is just getting everyone on the same playing field and removing the guesswork.
And right now, as we mentioned earlier, it's about to be winter time. So the time is now for training. What's something you recommend that all breweries do right now?
Yeah, what I would recommend is if you don't have an employee handbook that is ready to go, one of the easiest things is just log on to our site, barsite.ca, register for an account, and within like minutes, you can download our policies and procedures template, and that'll have a good skeleton, bare bones employee handbook, policies and procedures all laid out. And you can fill in the blanks, your reservation policy, a little about your brewery, and you can get that going like within minutes. And then at least you have something versus having nothing. And that's an easy win to get started. And once you basically see like, okay, that was actually not so bad, I can knock that out pretty quickly. You can start looking around your brewery and like, okay, what are the other things that I need to make sure that all my employees are knowledged and well versed on, and you can start knocking that out, and get taking care of the employees that you currently have, and getting everything all set up for when you start hiring all your employees in the spring and summertime for the big rush, and then you'll have all those training modules already done, ready to go for them to complete.
So we've all got our mission this holiday season to get all the training modules done, it sounds like.
Yeah, hopefully, and make make 2024 and make the next years just run a little bit smoother, and you can focus on other things rather than running around in complete chaos.
Now, Brian, we've talked a lot today about employee training, but Barsite does a lot more than just employee training. Can you tell me a little bit more about what your platform offers?
Yeah. So like I said, kind of at the beginning, employee scheduling is the root and soul of it all. But as it's evolved over the years, the clients that we've had on board asking us, hey, I've kind of got this problem. Can you solve this for us? And one of the more recent ones was the brewery inventory, and that was an exciting project. Just to start diving into, and that was tracking the raw ingredients, and putting that into the batches, and making packaging it up, sending out lot numbers, and creating invoices for their customers. And so that was a cool project, and a world that I hadn't really known beforehand. And now, so it's been an adventure making that, but I'm quite proud of what has been built there. And that's turned into another project that I'm going to start working on right now. I was just talking with another brewery, and they were asking for kitchen inventory, and I was like, well, yeah, I kind of already did the brewery side of everything. So now I'm going to start working on tracking kitchen inventory and kitchen orders. So as
I mean, it
you,
makes so much sense, right? So many breweries
yeah,
are adding food at the moment.
yeah, and that's what he said. He's like, well, our kitchen's really easy, pepperoni sticks and fries and stuff like that. And so, or create purchase orders, and then we sell it. And I was like, yeah, I've already done everything for the brewery stuff. So now it's taking that step back and bringing it into the kitchen stuff. So, it's just, it's always exciting. I always like just trying to solve problems and make things easier for people. And that's a big thrill.
And you don't work with just breweries. You work with restaurants, you've mentioned hotels, and it sounds like what you just mentioned about the kitchen inventory may be borrowed from your interactions with the restaurant world that you operate in. Is there anything else that you've learned from spaces outside of beer that you believe can be useful to the beer industry?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of the restaurant corporate sort of stuff that I was working with before is kind of what I'm trying to bring to the brewery industry. Um, Talking about better employee training and keeping things recorded a lot more with logbooks and stuff like that versus kind of the willy nilly sort of stuff. And So that's what I've been trying to do with Barsight, is kind of bring all those high powered tools that I was um, doing with the corporate world, and bring it to a more bite sized manner for breweries and wineries, and that's been the goal with Barsight.
At the end of the day, I imagine when breweries invest in all this training and organization, it's going to really benefit to make them more successful.
Yes, yeah, for sure. It yeah, makes them more successful and just keeps things easier to manage, which is the main point of it all.
Now, Brian, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that that covers everything for that topic.
So you mentioned getting the opportunity to download the, I believe it was like the training module, the policies and procedures handbook. That's what we were talking about. How
Oh
can
yeah,
people access this, and how can they, get involved more with Barsight?
yeah. Just registering for an account, barsite.ca, and they can get going immediately. We've made the process as quick as we sort of can, taking down just the crucial information just to get an account going. There's no complicated onboarding process. There's no, you don't need any hand holding getting set up. It's pretty straightforward. Log in and go to training modules, and there's a button right there. It says import templates, and you can click that button and you can browse through the templates that we have. We're going to be constantly adding more templates as we go along, and just making the system better. And so that's what they can do. It's pretty simple, trying to make it nice and easy.
And if anybody has any questions, how can they reach out for any help?
The best would be just through email. It's brian@barsite.ca or support@barsite.ca. They'll get filtered down to me, and I'm always happy to answer questions and help people out.
Your email response time is pretty quick, Brian, and it was great to have the opportunity to hang out with you a little bit at CBP Connects in Milwaukee. So I definitely look forward to the next time we get to share a pint. I appreciate you sharing all your insight today, and I look forward to seeing you in the new year.
All right, perfect. Thanks. Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.
And see ya.